StraightalLay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is why tax the rich, taxing the rich, whatever that means to you, why this concept is for losers. Yes, it is for losers. I'm going to explain to you why, whether you are rich or not, this concept is for losers. Therefore, you should perish it from your vocabulary. But before we get into this, I'll remind you of two things. First of all, my text message number is down below in the description. Once we start sending that message out, it'll be going straight to everybody who is in my texting community. So if you haven't texted me yet, just text me at the number that is down below in the description. Once we start sending that message out again, you'll be getting it straight to your phone. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. This is the place where you can have me as your direct coach. This is the place where anyone who wants to work with me works with me. This is the place where you get access to all of our trainings, all of our courses. You get access to me as your live direct coach. Yes, live conversations with me as your coach to help you with what you're working on, whether it be on a personal side, whether it be on a mindset side, whether it's business related, whether it's getting your products and services out there, funnel design, selling your stuff, getting on stages, all of that stuff, workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link also down below in the description. So getting into the topic here today, why taxing the rich? This concept is for losers. Now, this is about 4 years ago. I was sitting outside in the middle of Miami. This is before I was wearing a suit all the time. This is when I'm in shorts and a t-shirt. Probably don't want to sit outside in the middle of the day in Miami with a suit on. And I was in a high foot traffic area, just an area where a lot of people are always walking around. So this is a great area for people doing those street interviews. So if you ever see people doing street interviews and they just stop a random person on the street and start asking them questions, a lot of those get filmed in Miami in the exact area that I'm describing, exact area that I'm talking about here. They get filmed right there in the spot. I would see people doing these street interviews, and even today, I'll go on Instagram and I'll see someone doing a street interview, and I know exactly where they are. It's right on the very block that I'm describing that I was sitting at myself. So while I'm sitting there, this camera crew comes up. Man, there's not a lot of people. It's like a couple producers, sound person, and a woman who's going to be holding the mic, and the video guy. And one guy comes up to me because I'm sitting there. So he comes up because they're about to start doing these interviews, like literally right in front of where I'm sitting. And the guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, sir, would you be interested in doing a street interview? We want to talk about like social issues." And I said, "Sure." And he seemed surprised that I said yes. And I went and did the interview. This only lasted about 5 minutes. So the very first question in the interview was this. The woman asked me if I thought it was okay that billionaires don't pay taxes while the rest of us do pay taxes. That was what she said. Now, the question itself is a fallacious question because that's not really how it works. Billionaires do pay taxes, and the rest of us pay taxes as well. But her framing was fallacious. And I answered the question, first of all, how does she know I'm not a billionaire? Because the way she said it, is it okay that billionaires pay taxes and the rest of us don't? So she was putting me in a group with her. And I said, well, first of all, I didn't say this, but at first I'm thinking that you don't even know who I am. How can you assume that I'm not a billionaire? So I said, how do you know I'm not a billionaire? And then she said, well, are you a billionaire? And I said, no, I'm not. And then she said, okay. Then she asked the same question again. So that was first me just showing her, for those of you who know me, it's exactly what I would have said. So I answered the question directionally that I'm going to explain to you here today. But first, let me tell you exactly what I said to her. I said, if the current governmental tax code allows anyone to avoid paying taxes in any way, shape, or form, that person who has a way to avoid taxes will be a fool to pay taxes. Why would you pay taxes if you don't have to? I don't think any of you would pay a tax if you didn't have to. I was doing a live stream just yesterday from the date that I'm recording this, and I was asking the audience, we were talking about something along these lines, and I said, if any of you had the ability to pay half as much in taxes as you currently pay, would you take advantage of that ability and pay half as much, or would you pay the full amount because you believe it's your duty to pay the full amount? Would you pay half if you can get away with it legally? Or would you pay the entire amount because you just think you should just pay the full amount just because? And nobody said they would pay the full amount. Okay, so I don't care how much you pay in taxes every year or how much gets taken out of your checks. You would not pay it if you didn't have to. All right, nobody would pay it if they didn't have to. So this whole concept of, well, it's not fair that certain people at a certain financial bracket, they don't pay taxes, as if you wouldn't do the exact same thing if you had the ability to do so. So the question itself was bullshit. And I pointed that out to this woman on the street when we were doing this street interview. And I said that everyone should take advantage of the laws that the government has on the books. And if you know how to take advantage of them, why would you not? And keep more money in your own pocket. Why would you give it to the government? You're not getting it back. It's not helping. It's not going to help you in any way. And if other people don't have the ability or the wherewithal to do the same thing, that's not the problem of the people who do take advantage. That's the problem of the people who don't take advantage. So this is not something for anybody to complain about. Now, again, this is all what I said to this woman on camera during her street interview. Now, I could tell by the look on her face while I was answering the question, because I'm looking at her while I'm answering the question. Now, she did go on to answer the rest of her questions, but I knew just from the way she responded viscerally to the answer of my first question that this interview would never see the light of day. And as far as I know, the interview never saw the light. They never put this one out. But I guarantee they did a bunch of other interviews on the street that day asking the same questions, and they got the answers that they wanted, and they put that stuff out. But anyway, let's get into our points here today. Topic, once again, is why tax the rich is for losers. And I gave you a preview of why. Point number one, if you are of the belief or understanding that the rich do not pay taxes, which again is false, and you do not like paying taxes, then there's only one logical solution. Anybody know what it is? Class? If you are of the belief that the rich don't pay taxes, and at the same time, you personally don't like the concept of paying taxes, what do you believe the solution is to this issue? All right, the solution is you need to become rich. If you believe the rich don't pay taxes, that's actually not true. People who are rich do pay taxes. The bulk of the money the government collects from tax income that the government collects comes from people in the upper echelons of income. They may not pay the same percentage as everybody else, but the amount that they pay is more than everybody else pays put together. All right, so they do pay taxes. So but if you think the rich don't pay taxes, or whatever that means to you, and you don't want to pay taxes, I'm assuming none of you wants to pay taxes. You would keep all your money if you could, right? And I have 40% of it taken out of your check like the government's doing now, or maybe more depending on the state you live in. Okay, then just become rich. So now you don't have to pay taxes. If you really believe the rich don't pay taxes, then become rich. Now you don't have to pay taxes anymore. Your problem is solved. Again, if you truly believe it, then I just solved your problem for you. If you like paying taxes, then you can still become rich. Just pay more in taxes than you need to. Again, the government's not going to give the money back if you give them extra. They'll say, all right, thanks for the money. You'll never see this money again. It's going to get wasted, and as it goes through the governmental system, and everybody takes their cut off the top. But if you want to give it to us, we'll take it. So you can do that, pay more than you want, or you also have another option. Here's another option. You can continue being something other than rich, whatever you consider yourself. If it's not rich, whatever you call yourself, and keep bitching about the fact that the rich don't pay taxes, as you've already been doing. And the reason why this woman on the street asked me this dumb question is because a lot of people believe it. It's not true. I would suggest you not take this third option, but you have the option of doing so. Many people are going to take this option because they're not listening to the show. I strongly hope that anyone listening to me would not take this option, because I just told you why not to take it. And just for the record, again, for many of your understandings, the United States existed at a time, there was a time in the history of the United States, there were no taxes. There was a time there were no taxes in America. The 16th Amendment, which was ratified in the year 1913, allowed Congress to have federal income taxes. All right, that's when federal income taxes became a thing in the year 1913. And some of the main reasons why the government's need for money, they needed more money. And also, one of the biggest reasons that still exists today was people bitching about economic inequality. All right, this is one of the reasons why in 1913 they created income taxes, because people were complaining that rich people had so much more money than they had. Again, this is before there were taxes. There were people who were at the lower levels of income complaining that there were other people at higher levels of income, and they wanted that income disparity fixed in some way. So the tax system was created to ostensibly tax people with more money and take more from them. And then the concept was that money taken from the rich would get redistributed back to the people at the lower levels. Now, did that work? No, it did not work then. It still does not work now. So again, if you think this whole concept of redistributing wealth, or it's unfair that the 1% have more than 99% put together, you think this is some brand new idea that you just learned in college 2 years ago? No, it ain't new. All right, some bullshit that's been talked about for over 100 years. It has never worked. It's never succeeded. It's never produced anything fruitful except a bunch of bitching, complaining people who don't understand how the world really works. And hopefully you are no longer one of them as of listening to today's episode. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is why taxing the rich is a loser concept. Number 2, if you are unfamiliar with my style of communication, welcome. I'm glad that you found your way over here. I want you to understand that this episode is not about taxes. Okay, you might think this is about taxes. It's not about taxes. I often speak in metaphors, but I will explain my metaphors. And this episode is also not about rich people, whether you are rich or not. And this episode is also not really about money, even though we're going to use money as a frame. I'm using taxes, rich people, and money as a frame for this episode, but it's not really about any of those things. Let me tell you what it is about. This episode and the framework I'm laying out here today are all about the way you choose to look at life. And if you're looking at it from a position of a person who plans on winning in a big way, or a person who plans on being or remaining average and or a loser. That's what this episode is really about. Do you plan on winning in a big way in your life, or do you plan on doing something other than winning in a big way? Whatever that is, I don't know what you call it, but my material is not targeted towards you. You are free to continue listening. My material is targeted towards people who want to win in a big way. Whether you know how you're going to win, whether you are already winning or not, whether you have failed in the past, whether you're already at a higher level, you want to get it to a higher level or stay at a higher level. If you are focused on getting to a higher level or maintaining or staying there or ascending, then you're my person. But if you're not that, this material is not directed towards you. So if I say anything that goes over your head or seems to not land with you, there's a reason for that. But I want all of you to understand that. This is why I use the metaphor in the first point. The metaphor is about the rich and taxes. I don't think any of us likes paying taxes, even if you feel like it's your civic duty to do so. As Joe Biden liked to always say, paying your fair share. All right? Even if you think that's your civic duty. If you could pay less, you would do it. You would take advantage of it, especially if you could do it in a way that, first of all, if nobody would know about it, and secondly, is legal. Almost all of you would take advantage of it. All right, true or not? Of course. So the point of this is, if you think a certain group has certain privileges because of who they are, you should ask yourself, how can you get those privileges working for you? Instead of bitching about the fact that people have advantages and you don't. Again, this is just the way that I look at life. I don't know if everyone looks at it the way that I look at it, but we're not in preschool, ladies and gentlemen. Preschool, you can bitch about fairness and maybe get some semblance of it because you complained about it and cried about it enough. In the real world, that's not the way it works. The way the real world works is that some people have certain advantages in certain areas for certain reasons. And when you notice that those people have advantages, instead of complaining about their advantages and hoping that things get quote unquote evened out so that you feel like you are less disadvantaged, this is the bitching approach. This is the race hustling approach. This is the BLM protesting, taking the knee, Occupy Wall Street approach. And all the people doing those things are fucking losers. All of them are losers. And I've explained in the past why they're losers. Why? Because they're complaining about losing. They made a fucking movement about complaining about how much they're losing. If you're advertising the fact that you're losing to get attention and sympathy, you're losing. Period. There's no other way to describe it. So that way doesn't work. I would suggest, and this is the way that I look at life and the way that I would suggest you look at life, and I'm going to explain to you why through this episode, is that instead of complaining that other people have an advantage that you don't have, ask yourself, how did they get that advantage? And what can I do to give myself an advantage? Maybe you can't get the advantage that they have. Maybe they have the advantage because they're white and you're black. Maybe they have the advantage because they're boys and you're a girl. Maybe they have the advantage because they live in Texas and you live in Oklahoma. So you can't take advantage of the same advantage that they're taking advantage of. However, once you understand how they got it, if you ask yourself the question, how did they get that advantage? Once you get an answer, an accurate answer as to how or why they have that advantage, you should ask yourself, how can I get an advantage? It may not be the same advantage. You ask yourself, how can I get an advantage? So let's just say that you're black and you see some white people and you believe, you come to the conclusion based on your information that they have an advantage because they're white and because you're black, you can't enjoy the same advantage that they have. You should ask yourself, how can I get an advantage? And then that might mean that you may need to move yourself to a different situation so that you do have an advantage. Maybe you shouldn't be in this room. Maybe you shouldn't work at this job. Maybe you shouldn't be in this space because you can't get the advantage and you're always going to be kind of running against people who have a head start. Okay, where can I go where I have the head start? Where can I go where the advantages are favoring me instead of working against me? See, just asking the question puts you in a position of a winner because winners are looking for ways to win, whereas losers are looking for ways to complain about losing. Which one are you? This is a mindset, folks. This has nothing to do with your actual tangible outcomes, but it affects your tangible outcomes. Which one are you doing? This is an open question that I just want you to sit with as we continue. I'm still on my second point here. We're on point number one and point number two. You're on point number two. Topic, reminding you the topic here today. Taxing the rich is for losers, rather. So always ask yourself, how can I get the advantage? It says it's complaining about it. Again, this is a way of thinking. This is an approach to life. Good thing about it being a way of thinking and an approach to life is that it does not discriminate against you based on any tangible factors. See, a way of thinking is available to everybody. This is the reason why the foundation of what I do here at Work on Your Game. The reason why we have such a diverse audience of young, old, male, female, liberal, conservative, black, white, uh, middle of the country, coastal places, outside of the country, people who are in the medical space, people in the clothing space, people in the entertainment space, people in the tech space, people in the sports space. We have scholars here. We have people who never went to school here. We have people who work with their hands, people who work with their brains, blue collar, white collar. The reason why we have such a diverse audience here is because one of the reasons, actually, there's a couple of reasons. One reason is because I can break things down logically and objectively for anybody to understand. That's one reason. Another reason is because the foundation of what we do here is based in the way that you think, which everyone has access to. You see, this is not just for tall people or just for girls or just for entrepreneurs or just for people who went to college. See, you don't have to have any specific certifications or qualifications in order to understand what I'm explaining, nor do you need them to apply what I'm giving you. Now, some of the things I say go higher level, but to apply a mindset and to think a certain way, that's available to all of you. Any of you can think the way that I just described, regardless of your background, resources, history, resume, etc. Any of you could choose to think like a winner. You also had the option of thinking like a loser. I can't control that, but all I can do is give you the options. You do what you want to do. Does everybody understand what I'm saying here? Highly successful people look at everything from this angle. Where is the opportunity? Okay, I don't have it here, but where is it? It might not be here, but does it exist and where is it? How do I get there? Successful people never look at another person or another group, see them have an advantage, and then complain because they have it and you don't have it. Like, that's not what successful people do. Successful people look for ways to get advantages working for them, not just against them. Losers look for ways to complain about advantages that are working against them. Winners look for ways to get advantages working for them. Question is, which one are you doing? All right, just the fact that you're looking and thinking about the advantage makes you successful. The fact that you're even trying and you're looking in that direction makes you successful the very moment that you do it. And this is the direction in which I'm trying to steer your attention if it's not already there. Point number three. Today's topic, once again, is taxing the rich is for losers. The very concept. Number three, never, ever, ever, never, as Smokey said in Friday, never, ever, 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 ever complain about the events that someone other than you has, the advantages rather, that someone other than you has, without following up that complaint with questions of yourself and maybe even someone smart and insightful about how you can leverage unfairness to work for you. So if you ever catch yourself slipping and complaining, either internally or verbally, about the advantage that someone other than you has or the disadvantages working against you, you must immediately follow that up by asking yourself, how can I get that kind of disadvantage to work for me? That's it. That puts you in the mindset of a winner. Again, I already gave the example. Maybe the unfairness is for the boys and you're a girl. Maybe it's for white people, you're black. Maybe it's for only people of a certain group and you're not part of that group. It's only for people with degrees and you ain't got a degree, so you can't get in the group. You can't sit at that table. You should still be asking yourself the question, where is the opportunity for me? Why should you ask that question? Because by asking the question, you're putting your mind to work for you. And if you seek, you shall find. That applies to any aspect of life. You're looking for something, you will find it. We have created, unfortunately, a society today of whiners, wimps, and complainers. People who look for the opportunity in complaining rather than opportunity in trying to give themselves an edge. People spend more time and more energy looking for reasons to complain rather than for reasons to succeed. And it's disgusting. This is the reason why we have a weak society, because we got a bunch of whiners and complainers stepping to the forefront and into leadership positions. I didn't give them a leadership position. I don't look at them as leaders, but there are a lot of people who do. That's the problem. Okay, taxing the rich is endemic of what I'm describing. Taxing the rich is just a metaphor for the bigger problem. Oh, these people have more money than me, so I want to see the government take more money from them because that's going to make me feel better. What the fuck is that going to do for you? Again, this is a loser mentality. That is loser mentality. If you agree with this concept, taxing the rich, you are a loser. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or also known as AOC, famous politician from New York, who acts like she's from the hood, and she ain't from the hood, ain't never been to the hood. But she wore a dress. I believe it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. She was at, I believe it was the Met Gala event in New York. Was this famous event, that fundraising event that a lot of famous people go to. She was invited to the event, and she wore this long dress that on the back of it had the words "tax the rich," and it went viral for a day or two. She is preaching loser language to you all. First of all, she is becoming part of the rich through her connection to the government. And when people are in the government, they somehow, their net worth tends to balloon massively. That is not in line with the amount of money that they make. So she's becoming part of the rich while preaching to all of you that we need to tax the rich. So she's playing a game on you, first of all. Secondly, she's turning a bunch of you into losers because you're not working in the government and you're actually going to buy into this taxing the rich nonsense. While she can do things to avoid taxes herself because she can do investments that you don't have access to because you can't insider trade and she can. All right, these are kind of things happening. And again, I'm speaking metaphorically here generally, but this is kind of stuff that y'all getting tricked by. They're going to be aware of this stuff. Barack Obama talked about paying the fair share and all this other. Barack Obama got rich from 2008 to now. Barack Obama became rich, and he didn't get rich through his salary of being the president. It ain't enough money for him to have become as rich as he did. But he will talk about, oh, we got to pay the fair share. The rich have to pay their taxes. He preaches that because it sounds good and it works to win votes. But is it the truth of how he's living? No. So we call that being out of integrity. This is the reason why I couldn't be a politician, because I would have to be out of integrity, because I would have to lie to you and preach one thing while doing a different thing. It's the only way you can win in politics. And this applies to people on both sides of the aisle, by the way. If you think I'm just saying this about people on one side, no, they all do it. So instead of complaining about whoever you consider to be the rich, quote unquote, how about you just join them so you can have the same perks that they have? If you think being rich is so great, why don't you just become rich? So it can be great for you too. What's the problem? What better option do you have? Are you going to continue being not rich while bitching about them? And you want the situation to get worse for the rich? Is that going to help you? Is it going to make you feel better? I would suggest you just become rich. If you think being rich is amazing, become rich. Why not? And then keep them not being taxed. So then you can let the losers complain about the taxes that the rich don't pay while you laugh at them and keep not paying taxes. I mean, that's what I would do. If any of you got a better idea, let me know. Let's recap today's class, which is why tax the rich is for losers. Again, I told you this story. I won't recap it, but I got stopped for a street interview in Miami a few years ago, and someone asked this question: is it okay for billionaires to not pay taxes while the rest of us, quote unquote, don't pay taxes? And what I'm explaining here today is directionally explaining why that's a loser question that a lot of losers have bought into. And most people are in the middle class, as I talked about in yesterday's episode. This is the reason why most people become and remain losers, not because they can't win, because of their mindsets. Point number one: if you are of the belief or understanding that the rich don't pay taxes and you don't like paying taxes, which I'm sure you don't, then there's only one logical solution, which is for you to become rich. Again, this is just a way of thinking that most people never even entertain, let alone do they employ. All right, simple one, but a lot of people never think this way. All right, number two: if you are unfamiliar with my communication style, once you understand this episode is not about taxes, it's not about the rich, it's not even about money. It's about putting yourself in a frame of mind of being successful, which means asking yourself, where is the opportunity, instead of complaining about the fact that there isn't one that you can see. Number three: never, ever, ever complain about the advantages that someone other than you has without following that complaint immediately by asking yourself, how can I get some advantages for myself? All right, I don't have any right now. How can I get some? That's how winners think. That's the default setting of winners. Losers, on the other hand, think in a different way. Question is, which one are you? Workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can work with me directly. First of all, we're going to get your mind in the right space so you understand how to think like this by default setting rather than having to be told. Secondly, we're going to come up with a game plan, a plan of action for you to get from point A, where you are now, to the point Z that we're going to clearly define what that is, so we know exactly where we're going and why and how long it's going to take. Third is the system. How do we make this work on a consistent, predictable basis? And last, you're going to have me as your accountability coach to make sure you are implementing, following through, and you have me as a sounding board through the entire process. All of that is workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all